conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Brunch Bunch. I haven't seen you all in a while. We took a short break in order to rejuvenate ourselves, but now we're back, and unfortunately we're having a conversation that we have to have all too often. But I feel like the conversation is needed, and it's timely, and so I have some special guests that are here that are going to share their thoughts and their opinions. I also have another guest who wanted to be with us today. However, he could not. So he pre-recorded some questions that I shared with him and his answers. So we're going to also share those as well. So we're going to first start out by having everyone introduce themselves. And we're looking at, as Chris Cuomo basically calls it, a tale of two cities. And that's how we as the minority culture are feeling right now in our country that we help to build. So I'm gonna just call your name, and then I would like you to kind of introduce yourself and give a little bit about your background. All right, so we will start with Destiny.
Hi everybody, my name is Destiny Campbell. I'm about to be a second-year law student at Florida State University. I also went to Florida State for undergrad. I don't know what else there is to say about me. I guess in the other introduction, he gave a little bit about his religious background. So I grew up in a Christian home, primarily Church of God, Baptist, and then I have a different perspective because I went to Presbyterian Christian high school. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood. I grew up in Parkland, Florida. I went to all private schools my entire life. So I have grown up in a predominantly white area, and same thing at a predominantly white university. So that's a bit about my background. I'm excited to share with you guys today and learn some more.
Me? Yeah. Okay. I'm Anessa Pfeiffer Gonzalez. I live in Bismarck, North Dakota. I've been in North Dakota my whole life, trying desperately to get out in bits and pieces. I grew up, I was a teacher for 22 years, and then I did computer programming. I was bottom level, and now I work for Finley Engineering as a bottom level assistant doing paperwork and legal documents. I grew up Catholic in a small rural town. I grew up on a farm, and other than me and a couple, there was a few other adopted people that were multiracial, but I'm just a whole bunch of layers of white bread. And now I left the Catholic Church about 20 years ago and did some church hopping and ended up in Unitarian Universalist, and the same one Obama grew up with in Hawaii. And I've been a Unitarian now for the last maybe 10 years.
Thank you. And last but not least, Nina.
Hey y'all, my name is Nina Boyd. I attend Tennessee State University. I'm about to be a sophomore. I grew up and I am from the city of Atlanta, and I think I can provide a different perspective because I actually went to a predominantly Black school before I transferred to Fayette County High School, where I met Dr. Powell, and I also go to a HBCU. So I feel like, I can just provide a perspective from different viewpoints. And I have six African-American brothers. We kind of grew up together, but in different homes. So it's just a lot of different things that I think that I can add a perspective on.
Okay. And of course, I'm Lydia Powell, an educator, but more importantly, I am the mother, the sister, the daughter, granddaughter of Black men. And so that's who I am today in this conversation. And so we would like to start. I'm not sure if we have Mr. Sheets' video, his audio. Okay. All right. And then the last but not least, of course, is Mr. James Sheets. and you'll hear more from him later. He's going to also share his background. And so I'm going to start with one question. And so we will allow whoever would like to chime in to answer this question. And then Mr. Sheets was also provided with the same questions. So we are going to hear from him as well. All right. So the first question is, what is your opinion on the Black Lives Matter movement? And when you think about the question, I want you to think about other things that have come up as well. Blue lives matter. All lives matter. So in thinking of those things, what is your opinion on Black Lives Matters and all the other initiatives that have come about? And so we're going to actually start with James Sheets, and he's going to share his perspective on that question. He's going to first give his background, but then share his perspective.
Married, a Christian, a minister in the Anglican tradition, but I have a cross-ecclesiastical background that allows me a unique perspective. I'm a historian and a theologian. I also have a side hustle, a marketing business, where I help business owners better themselves and their businesses. My genetic background is English, Irish, German, and a Native American mix. In other words, I'm a mutt. However, I identify most with my Native American heritage, which helps me understand a discriminated and persecuted segment of society. Politically, I started off as a Democrat, later switched to being a Republican, and am now an independent that votes issues with no regard or loyalty to any political party, because no one party has the answer or can offer the solutions necessary to solve the challenges our nation faces. Question 2. What are your thoughts on the Black Lives Matter initiative? Do you think it's necessary? While I'm supportive of the Black Lives Matter movement, I would be uncomfortable to focus on that as the only or even the main area. As a Christian, a historian, and one with a Native American heritage, I understand the importance of emphasizing that all lives matter, and that we must, as a nation, pursue the development of a society where the rights and opportunities that abound in our nation are protected for everyone, regardless of race, religion, societal status, gender, or political persuasion. Question 3. Are you aware of cases like Trayvon?
I think we lost the sound. I think if you click on it.
I thought you were only doing the one question.
Because I actually went to a predominantly black school.
Lydia?
No, he can go right into that second question.
Okay, I'm sorry. So just jumping in. Y'all can't see me. You wanted to go ahead and let him do all 3 of the questions. He was on question number 3.
Okay, so we'll stop there.
Okay.
All right, so if you did not hear what he said, so Mr. Sheets basically shared his background, and he comes from a mixed culture. And he shared that, he understands the Black Lives Movement, but however, he feels like all lives matter. And then he gives some background as to why he believes that. So when you hear all lives matter, what are your thoughts? What are your opinions? What are some of the things that you think about?
You can go ahead and start, Nina, if you want.
You can go.
Okay. I want to first start by saying that it needs to be understood that the concepts are not mutually exclusive of each other. Saying Black Lives Matter does not mean that all lives do not matter. And Another way for me to easily sum it up is that all lives cannot matter until Black lives do matter. And I feel like a lot of people are uneducated and ignorant as to where the All Lives Matter hashtag came from. And I think there are some people who have genuine intentions in saying all lives matter, which clearly we all agree that everybody's life is important, which is what we're protesting for. Anyway, I think a lot of people don't know where the term came from. So when they say all lives matter, they are legitimately just trying to say, I care about Black people, but I care about other people as well. But they don't realize that the All Lives Matter movement came up as a result of the Black Lives Matter movement. And that is the problem, that All Lives Matter is purposefully trying to discredit the Black Lives Matter movement. And I don't want to take up too much time. I'll just give a quick example that people have been using a lot. When we're at breast cancer rallies, no one comes around saying, why aren't you running for pancreatic cancer patients? Why aren't you running for stomach cancer patients? Because right now the focus is on breast cancer. The focus is on people who are victimized from that. That is killing more people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's what the focus is on. So that's my take on it.
Nina?
Okay, so I agree with Destiny. I feel as though the Black Lives Matter movement came about, and everybody that was a part of it and that is a part of it and that joins goes so hard for the movement that other people feel as though they have to come in and kind of, you know what I'm saying, represent for everyone else. But it feels as though they're attempting to dilute our unity and dilute the strength of the Black Lives Matter movement, because it is strong, and everyone across the board who supports Black lives, and whether we agree on how we feel about the situations that come about or not, we all scream Black Lives Matter. We all post Black Lives Matter. And so when you have something so strong, people that aren't a part, they can either get with the program or they can be against the program. And when they're against it, that's when they come in with that's what it feels like. That's when they come in with all lives matter. All lives do matter, as Destiny said. But the two are not mutually exclusive. So all lives can matter while Black lives do matter. And I think we all agree that it's always been understood that all other lives do matter. We have been targeted. We are being targeted, and more than any other race. So right now we are the focus. Right now we will remain the focus, and Black lives will be the thing that I scream and I yell until I see that others understand that Black lives matter. Until then, I'll keep saying it, and I don't care how many times you say all lives matter. I never said they didn't, but right now we need everyone else to understand that Black lives matter. So that's my take.
Nice. Nessa, would you like to share your thoughts on that? You have to unmute though. Unmute though.
Okay. Yeah. When there's anything posted about Black Lives Matter or anything like that, it's immediately a real defensive all around. All lives matter, and I'm like, not until Black Lives Matter. I mean, well, police lives matter. We're not taking sides here. Can't we all be on the same team? Can't everybody be alive? So no, there's definitely a harsh feeling around me because the only thing they see is the negativity or whatever's on the news or whatever gets the attention. But definitely, it's like you just keep repeating all lives matter. I wish there was a t-shirt that said all lives matter and it would have all the different, like, everything on there. You know what I mean? The different symbols, or including the trans and cancer and whatever. But it's like people don't understand that it's not mutually exclusive. So, yeah, I agree with them, and I'm aware of the negativity.
And when you hear that negativity, what are your thoughts? Do you feel comfortable saying something about it, or how do you navigate your environment knowing how you feel?
Depends on who I'm talking to and how tight our relationship is. See, if I'm in a mood to gauge their responsiveness, sometimes, I just say it and don't care what they think. And other times I know that it's a real tender subject for them, for whatever their background might be. Because, as they get older, it's less likely that they'll listen to me anyway. I guess I'm ageism. That's kind of what I just did there. Sorry about that, everybody. But it's definitely a tightrope to walk, and I guess I ventured out on the rope more than most people around me, and that makes me a target at work too. But there's always, I don't think people realize that what they're saying is hurtful. They don't get it. It's like nobody's arguing that white lives matter, because that's not even a topic. That's just assumed. It's like they forget that it's not assumed that everybody's life matters when it's not fair. I don't know.
Yeah, and it does feel a little dismissive at times when you have this initiative going on and you see the evidence as to why we have to say that. And so if women weren't being murdered for doing simple things like, going for a run, or, just these simple things that other people get to do every day. You wake up and you're not thinking about, oh, if I go to the Starbucks today, is someone going to look at me because like I shouldn't be in that space? And so when you have to emphasize it and you see the evidence as to why, and then that said, sometimes it does feel dismissive. All right, so the next question I asked was, as a religious leader, how do you think we should move forward as a collective? Mr. Sheets actually is a religious leader, so we're going to take a second and hear from him his thoughts on that.
Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery matter, and that we must, as a nation, pursue the development of a society where the rights and opportunities that abound in our nation are protected for everyone, regardless of race, religion, societal status, gender, or political persuasion. Question 3. Are you aware of cases like Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Michael Brown, Eric Garner, to name a few? What are your thoughts on those deaths from the perspective of a minister, from your perspective as a citizen, from your perspective as a member of the majority culture? Of course, as a citizen, that works to be informed of current events and their relevance. As a historian who works to place current events in their proper context, and as a minister that works to keep proper perspective on how all of this relates to individuals, I'm informed about the individuals you mentioned. And each of those cases, the deaths were tragic, but not necessarily because of what has been presented in popular discussion. I was around during the Civil Rights Movement in both Alabama and in Atlanta. I saw the good, the bad, and the ugly on both sides of the fence. I also saw the civil rights leaders of that time rise above what was happening on the ground with a vision of what the real issues were and the appropriate steps required to solve those issues. Has our nation had systemic racial issues? Certainly. Have they been addressed? Yes. There have been efforts to address the issues and to put in place protections to keep them from returning. Have they been effective? Yes and no. Yes, because overall there's very little overt discrimination against most minorities on a systemic level. Since you mentioned the individuals who were black, I'll say something about that. We've had a black president the highest political office in our land and the most powerful position in the whole world. Not bad for a nation that once embraced slavery, eh? I've had many friends, acquaintances, business associates, and ministry associates who, even though they live in a society that once embraced slavery, have now went beyond that shameful past and have taken advantage of the freedoms and opportunities that are presently available through hard work and personal perseverance, and have risen to positions in life socially, economically, politically, educationally, etc., that only a few have achieved regardless of their ethnic background. And then, have they worked? No, because the systemic focus, while important, has never been the main issue. It isn't the governmental system that's the problem or the solution. It is the human heart. Good people do good things. Bad people, sadly, do bad things. And hurting people hurt people. To properly address the issues that result from the type of person one is, it necessitates changing the heart, and thus the lifestyle and actions of the person, one person at a time. No political system can ever achieve that. When America's founding fathers established the foundation on which our nation was based, they understood this. They were cognizant that if the majority were allowed to rule, that the minority would suffer. Therefore, they put in place a political system whereby getting things made into law was difficult. They put in place checks and balances, different branches of the government, etc., so that only what was actually relevant and important to all could be established, thus protecting everyone from mob rule. I often hear many complain about how hard it is to get things pushed through Congress and how long it sometimes takes. As a historian, one who has seen how nations throughout human history have done it in the past, rightly or wrongly, it is immediately obvious that this is not a weakness of our system, rather it is one of its strengths. Only the most important issues that are relevant to the majority of people can be implemented.
Okay.
Question 4.
All right. So there are a lot of points. We're going to start with Nina. I saw her taking notes like that good fed tiger she once was. But there are several points, and I agree with some of the points, and I disagree with other points. So you can think about what points you want to discuss. But some of the ones I want to just highlight is what he stated about the government, and that they may not, they're not the cause for this, and they may not be able to help with this situation that we're in now. He also mentions, that we're doing pretty well because we had a African American president. And then he talks about on the systemic level, how far we've basically come, being that he's seen it in the past in Alabama and Atlanta and where we've come. And it seems like he feels that we've come far. However, it's not the government, it's not the laws, not the rules, it's people's heart. And that's why we are where we are. So Nina, would you like to start us off on just any points that you want to bring up, anything you agree with or disagree with?
Yes. So firstly, I would like to start off by saying there's a substantial amount of African American males that are incarcerated currently, in the past, and now. And with that being said, I would like to say that when something is done that is against the law, and they are taken to court for it, or they are required to go to court for it, they are arrested and they are incarcerated if they have done something that is against the law. And so when it was said just now that the government isn't an issue, the government is the issue. It's not the only issue, but it is one of the issues. There There doesn't only have to be one issue, and the government is one of the issues. Because if it were reiterated again and again and again, every time something were to happen, or every time a racial injustice were to happen, that this is not okay, half of the things that have happened wouldn't have happened. I, in my heart, believe that half of the murders that have happened involving police brutality and African American men, if they knew that their friends, their prior racist friends that have killed black men, or or racial police officers before them that killed black men, if they knew that they suffered and were incarcerated, or they faced the death penalty for the things that they did, I'm 100% sure they wouldn't feel okay with it. But we live in a country, and we live in a world where it has been made okay. The problem that so many African American people have right now with the George Floyd situation and every other situation that's just like this one is the fact that the people that are responsible for the deaths of these people are not I don't want to say reprimanded, but they aren't reprimanded for what they do. And that's the problem. The problem is that the government and the leaders in charge are making this seem okay. As I want to use this example, when I was younger, I used to do a lot of things that I should not have done. But one of the things that I used to do all the time, and don't judge me, was fight. I used to fight a lot when I was younger. And the reason why I stopped is because my sister, who I now live with, when I got with her, she made it clear to me, this is not okay, and these are the actions. These are the consequences for your actions. So if you decide to fight, that's fine, but you will have to suffer the consequences. There are no consequences set in place for these people who think that it's okay to murder our black men and murder our black women. Actually, I like to say that too. Murder our African American people. They think it's okay, and it's been made okay by our system. So the government is an issue, and and it's not even necessarily until we get the right people in office, but it is until we get the right people in office, and until we get overall fairness. It's going to be the way it is, and it doesn't matter how many hearts are good. It is about who's in office and who can make rules and who can make laws and who can set the record straight. Set the record straight that this is not okay. I don't care if you're black, white, brown, purple, blue. If it's unjust, it's unjust. If it's unright, it's unright. If it's illegal, it's illegal. And murder is illegal regardless of whether you are a police officer or a janitor. It is illegal. And I guarantee you that if it were the other way around and the pedestrian was white and the cop was black, I guarantee you, I can bet on it that it would be a totally different situation. So that's how I feel about it.
Okay, and we're going to come back with Destiny in 1 second. We're going to take a commercial break, but we're going to get her thoughts. And we also have my cousin who just landed in Minnesota. She basically has a black son, and she felt like she needed to be there to support not people rioting, but support people who are protesting. So we're going to also hear from her as well. So we will be right back after these commercials.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, trying to get down.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KeaversVoice.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Now, you can live in Texas and not have a good red meat blend. Texas Cowboy Dust is designed for steak and other red meats. It's out to be my most popular spice blend, made with onions, peppers, ground mushrooms, pink salt, and other spices. Texas Cowboy Dust also goes great with chicken, pork, vegetables, and adds a restaurant quality sheen to gravies and sauces.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at mymajesties.com. That's MyMajesties.com. My Majesties, an Urban Passport member.
Are you hungry for authentic Caribbean food like jerk chicken, oxtail, red snapper, shrimp, tofu, and rasta pasta? Well, find your way over to Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta.
Them belly full, but we hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, open daily from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And on Friday and Saturday, we're open till 4 a.m. Come to Mango's and put some spice in your life.
So we've got a good thing going.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, 180 Auburn Avenue, right next to Royal Peacock in downtown Atlanta. For more info or directions, call 404-698-3992 or log on to mangoscaribbeanrestaurant.com. For instant coupons, text MANGOS to 313131.
Tell your mama hungry, papa hungry, brother hungry.
Mango's Caribbean Restaurant, authentic Caribbean cuisine.
Welcome back, everyone. And so before Destiny answers that last question or basically comments on some of the comments from Mr. Sheets, we have Miss Lillian Bentley. She is on the line with us, and she's going to share where she is, why she's there, and just give us some background information.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lillian Bentley. I'm from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I recently watched the video. I have, I'm a mother of a young man. He's 9 years old. And when I saw that video, it touched me in a different way. There was no question in my mind as to how he died after watching that video. And I really felt like that could have been my son, that could have been my brother, that could have been my uncle, that could have been like a part of me. And in a way, he is a part of me. And so I said I have to be there to stand in solidarity and peacefully protest with the people and, you know, let it be known that this wasn't right. So I booked my flight. I ended up getting stuck in Denver for a night. So I ended up staying overnight in Denver. Then this morning is when my flight left out to Minnesota. So I left Denver at 8:45. I just landed in Minneapolis maybe about 30 minutes ago. I just checked into my hotel to change my clothes, get everything set and ready to go. And my hotel is about 20 minutes away from the site where he was killed and where George Floyd was killed. I think it's important that we say his name. And I wanted to be in this space. I wanted to be as close to that space as I could be. And right now, when I landed at the airport, it wasn't really many people outside. It was very calm. As we drove through the city to get me to my hotel, it was pretty calm. So hopefully once I get to the site where George was murdered, I'll be able to come back on and kind of show you guys, you know, how everything looks over there and how the protests and things of that nature are going.
Okay. Thank you so much for checking in with us. And I have your location, so I'm going to be monitoring where you are because I just want you to be safe. So just be safe and just call us. Also, there's a number, and I can share it with you. Write that number on your arm in case anything happens. They're asking any people who are protesting to write that number for assistance in getting out if something happens, or that's the person. Those are people you need to call. They're there to help. So if you don't have that number, I will send it to you.
Okay, I have it.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you in a little while.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye. All right. So Destiny, if you can chime in on our last comment from Mr. Sheets. I was going to say Mr. James Sheets.
Yes.
And he shared his opinions, and just from the perspective of a man from the cloth, and his perspective based on his age and his position, in America, being a white male. So what are your thoughts on his comments?
So I first want to address the point that he made about the government, and I want to more address it towards our criminal justice system and the fact that he thought it wasn't really the problem. I'll talk about the whole heart situation in a little bit, but I just want to piggyback a little bit off of what Nina said and go a little bit more in depth that the two goals of our criminal justice system, I'm going to do a little bit of law school knowledge really quick. The two goals are either to have deterrence or basically like an eye for an eye, to be punished because you did something wrong. When police officers are not convicted for what they've done, when they don't spend time in jail, neither of the two goals of the criminal justice system is served. And that is where the problem is. So that's the first thing I want to address. That is a government problem that trickles down into the criminal justice system. One of the two purposes needs to be fulfilled. That's all I'll say about that. And one more thing, the government is so important to what's going on, but more specifically our local elections, our commissioners, our mayors, those are the seats that, our sheriff's office, those are the seats that matter. So this is all about government. Regarding hearts, I understand him wanting to look at it from a religious perspective. Before anything else, I am a Christian woman. Before I'm a Black woman. Externally, yes, that's the first thing you see about me, but I identify first as a Christian woman. And so I understand him coming from the religious perspective, and I've seen a lot of people posting that now is when we need Jesus more than ever, which is true. But throughout my entire life, I have learned in the church that Christ and Jesus and God will not do the work for you. Jesus doesn't work unless you do. So unless you go out and seek education and seek that heart change, it's not just going to be a flip of a switch that he's saying that we need. So we do need to change our hearts, but there's no way to do that unless we get educated and we understand and put ourselves in the position of what Black people are feeling. And the last thing I want to say is about President Obama and how we have a Black president. So look how far we've come. And I feel like that phrase is said so much. And it's almost a slap in the face because we've come this far and have an insurmountable amount to go. And people can't even see that. Why are you protesting? There's no segregation. There's no slavery. What are you protesting for? You can be a functioning person in society. And I think a lot of that comes from an ignorance and a white privilege of not being able to see. And just because you don't feel that our system or that Black people aren't where we should be, just because you can't feel it does not mean that it doesn't exist. And the whole look how far we've come thing is good. And I don't want us to feel like victims because we have progressed and we did that. We pushed us there. But we do have so much more work to do. And if you fall complacent to the mindset that we've already come so far, that's when progress stops happening.
Well said. Well said. Anessa, did you want to share any thoughts? Off of mute.
Yeah, I guess I have to say that I disagreed with him on a few points. I think that when people are in their hearts, that's just a nice cop out. That's like saying, oh, thoughts and prayers. and I want to reach through my phone and slap them when they say thoughts and prayers, because it hasn't accomplished a whole lot so far. I remember my grandma used to tell me to pray, and we'd pray out loud. And when she said, well, what are you praying for? And I tell her, and then when we get done, she'd say, that sounds like a wonderful to-do list. So whatever you're praying for, that's your to-do list. And in some places, judges are appointed. Sometimes judges are voted for. And that needs to be a question. I've done moderating for the League of Women Voters, and the hard questions in the local elections, they're not out there. And when if anything remotely is asked, they just dance around it. And as a moderator, a volunteer, I wasn't allowed to say, I'm sorry, would you like me to repeat the question? Because you didn't answer it. And they won't do that. And people need to know that when groups of kids are pulled over for drug exchange, and they both say, oh, he was selling, and and that sort of bullshit. Sorry.
It's okay.
There's a certain group of kids that always get in trouble, and there's a certain group of kids whose daddy's a lawyer and they don't. And so our statistics in North Dakota, when we've got small numbers of minorities, the minorities are definitely misrepresented in our court system. And yeah, I get very passionate about that as a teacher, and I worked with the at-risk kids, and there was just so much that could have been done that was ignored. And I just feel like everybody wants someone else to do the hard work or open their mouth, and we need to do that. We need to see the injustice, because whatever. Yeah, I can't even explain it all. And I will say too, I was in Minneapolis. I've been to Minneapolis, hundreds of times. And when there was that white woman who called in some commotion in her alley, and she came screaming toward the cop car, and they told her to stand back, and she came forward and was explaining what happened when she got shot by the cop. That was horrible, and he was prosecuted. He was it wasn't even a question. And so I don't understand why this cop and all three of them that were kneeling on him weren't immediately taken into custody for this investigation. I mean, if they wanted to pass it off as, oh, we're keeping them safe from the protest, they could have done that. But instead, they wasted all this taxpayer money surrounding their houses and protecting them. Send them to jail. I mean, that's the right thing to do. I don't understand why that was even a question. Same thing with the two men who hunted down that jogger. Why did it take months for stuff like this to come to light? So, you want to go in the house, go ahead. So I just wanted to say, I feel like the disparity is so obvious, and people don't need to just pray about it, because that doesn't help much. I just wish I could have everyone hear my grandma say, sounds like a wonderful to-do list. Thoughts and prayers are going to do it.
Yes. Thank you for that. And what you're referring to as far as the Minnesota officer, so this is from our knowledge 4 other times. And you have Orlando Castile, Jamar Clark, and now George Floyd. But you also had a woman, and she happens to be Caucasian, and the officer was Somali American. And he was arrested and is currently doing 12.5 years in prison for the death of this woman. However, we have 1, 2, 3. And as Nessa said, look how long it took for it to come to light. And I believe if it didn't come to light, an arrest would not have happened. And to the point, I think someone made a point, the good heart point in his people's heart. I saw this earlier. So it said 10, actually from my cousin Lillian, who was with us earlier. It said 10 bad, there may be 10 bad cops and 1,000 good cops. But those 1,000 good cops don't turn the 10 bad cops in. So that makes 1,010 bad cops. And so let's go into the culture. And I want to say this first. I have several family members who are police officers. My grandfather was a New York City police officer. His father was a police officer in Lee County, Fort Myers police officer. My uncle, not only was he a police officer, but he was the first African-American lieutenant, sergeant, chief of police from Fort Lauderdale Police Department to the Broward County Sheriff's Office, and my cousin currently serves at the Sheriff's Office for Broward County as well. I invited several officers, but because they are activated, they could not come on and they could not speak. I do know how they feel about this situation, but they are not allowed to speak about it. So I want to talk about the culture, this blue culture. So number one, this is one of the questions. Do you think, now let's look at the process to become a police officer. In your opinion, what changes need to happen? And do you think there needs to be more rigorous psychological testing, especially for bias? So I passed my lie detector test. I passed my drug test and things of this nature. But do you really know how I feel about people who do not look like me, who do not worship like me, who do not eat the foods I eat, who do not speak the language I speak? So how do you feel about when we look at the institution of police officers and being a police officer? And I spoke to someone earlier and they asked me this question: what percentage of people actually aspire to be police officers, and how many people, or what percentage of people just become police officers? We also talked about the personality type of someone that becomes a police officer. So just think about all those things and just share your thoughts on the culture of blue, is what I'll call it.
I'll go ahead and say something about the training first. I want to start by saying, to be an attorney, to learn the law, it takes 3 years. To be able to legally enforce the law as a police officer takes weeks. A few weeks of training. How does it take me 3 years to learn everything about the law, to learn your rights that I shouldn't violate, but other people are allowed to go and enforce that within a matter of weeks? I think there is an inherent problem with training that officers are not getting. And I'm not just talking about physical training. I'm not talking about how and when to shoot your gun. I'm talking about racial training. Officers are supposed to be protecting and serving us, and it seems like they are scared of us Black people, Black men. And when I saw someone who's a police officer that I know post this on Facebook, that we're supposed to be looked at as the innocent. And when we're not looked at as the innocent, their goal is not to protect and serve anymore. And I think there's a lot of racial and bias training that needs to be given. And it needs to be continued, because a lot of these officers have been in the force for years and never got that training in the beginning and are not going back into training at this point in their career. And so I think it needs to be something that's continuous, which that means more funding and a lot of things, a long rabbit hole of things. But it definitely starts with, I think, just general training and community outreach. We need to get police officers in our communities as normal people before. And growing up, it depends on your circumstances. I never grew up afraid of police, but that's because I grew up in an area where things like this weren't happening. South Florida, this is just not a thing. But if you grow up from the time you can recognize a police officer being scared of one, how would you act in a confrontation? So I think it starts with training, racial training.
Yeah, and I just want to chime in and say something about your last statement of the training and the psychological part of what do you see when you see a police officer. And I think it depends on what your background is. Or did you grow up in an environment where Officer Friendly came to your school and gave you a lollipop and danced with you in the street? Or did you grow up in an environment where you saw that because you looked differently, you were treated differently? And I will say this, when I saw the way George Floyd was handled, from the time that they had him already handcuffed, they walked him to the car, I immediately, past trauma started coming up. And I went back in my mind to being a child in I believe I was second or first grade. And basically I remember going back to 4th of July in the 80s, and my parents actually took all the kids from the neighborhood. We're going to go, into Manhattan, and we're going to watch the fireworks. And so my dad and my mom got the kids in the neighborhood. We got on a train. We went down to Manhattan, and we saw this group of men. They looked like they worked at Wall Street. They had on the ties and stuff, and we were near there. They had little firecrackers, and so they set the firecrackers off. So of course my parents were like, oh, we have little firecrackers. We're going to set ours off. And I remember the police coming to us, and the way they handled my parents, especially my father, was horrible, and it was traumatic. All the kids started screaming and crying. They threw him down on the ground. They handcuffed him. This is for fireworks. And people who did not look like us were right next to us doing the same exact thing. And then I just remember my friend Judy, my best friend at the time, actually jumped on one of the officers saying, let my uncle go. What are you doing? And my father actually got arrested. And that is the image. So when I saw George Floyd, it wasn't shocking that he was being handled like that, because that's what I've seen. Then on the flip side of it, I look at people like Malik's father, who they are in the community. They work with the youth. They talk to people that are going down a bad path. This is a drug dealers and this and that. Hey, you don't want this. You don't want to be here. They're looking for you to do something bad. And then I'm looking in just Fayette County. They're trying to do a shift where they're in the schools more, where they're trying to have, conversations and be in the community. And I believe that they're trying to change the culture of the police force. But again, I never even thought about it like that, how long it takes to be an attorney and the test that you have to pass to be an attorney. And someone else that is supposed to uphold the law as well is not held to the same standard. As a matter of fact, when my uncle and my grandfather became police officers, you didn't even need a high school diploma or a college degree. You can have a GED to actually become a police officer, which brings in level of education as well. And even looking at some people I know who are police officers, that was not necessarily their first choice. They wanted to do other things, and then they ended up becoming police officers. All right, anyone else would like to share about the culture? Yes, Nina.
So when Destiny was talking and then we heard something else, I was just thinking in my head and something popped up, and it was keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And that has been a thing that has been said I've heard that for so long. I remember when I was younger and I used to get into people, and my mom used to always tell me that keep your friends close and your enemies closer, because you know what your friends are going to do, but you don't know what your enemies are going to do. And those are the ones that you need to watch out for. So keep those people close. And so I thought about it, and it's just such a huge divide. There's an obvious divide between law enforcement and minorities, law enforcement and African Americans, and we see it in music, we see it in TV, we see it everywhere, the divide. And I feel as though half the reason why we can't come to a conclusion about anything is because they are who we consider the enemies, and we don't want to be by the enemies. We don't want to have our enemies close. We don't want them anywhere near us. We don't want to pass by them. We don't want us to look at them. We don't want them to look at us. They don't want us to look at them. It's such a divide, and I feel like the only way for us to change what's happening and to change the narrative is to come together and figure out a way for them to be able to look at us as regular people, and for us to be able to look at them as ones who are here to serve and protect, which right now isn't the case. And as long as that's not the case, there will be a divide, and police officers will be fighting every time they are called to come and handle an African American person, or every time they're called to come and handle a situation called by who we call on social media Karen or something of that nature. It's just like, as long as that's happening, there will be no change, there will be no fix until we are able to come together. And again, we cannot do that until there's an understanding amongst everybody about who we are and who they are, and that just because we are brown or just because we are minorities does not mean that we're of danger, or that we're thugs, or that we're anything like that.
Thank you. Nessa, do you want to share any thoughts on just the culture, the police culture? And if you can share too, with you being in North Dakota, I know it's a lot more spread out, like where you live. But what are your thoughts on that? And what is the police presence like in your community?
Well, I have to say that I was picked up a number of times when I was in high school, so I had a little bit of experience with the police culture. We're not going to get into that really, but I will say that I don't have a record. There's nothing that ever happened to me. It was I can give you one innocent example where there was a lot of us in the car and there was drinking involved, and when the police pulled us over, the boys were booked, and the oldest one was given cited for contributing to minors. The rest of the boys were given minor in possession, and the girls were all given a ride home. Okay, so I grew up at that time going, well, that's not fair. Like, I'm volunteering to get minor in possession. It wasn't until a few years after that that I realized why boys buy girls alcohol. So then I started understanding a little bit more. So I guess there was a protect and serve in that situation. Fast forward about 25 years, I'm in Arizona with my brother, my half brother, and he is Japanese, but he's short and he looks Mexican. At a distance, he looks Mexican. And we're driving, and a police officer meets us, and he sees him whip around, does a Louis, and follows us. And my brother's just starting to swear, and I'm like, "What's the matter?" It didn't even occur to me to have my heart pump. And sure as shooting, it wasn't more than another block. He gets pulled over, and he's pulled out of the car, and he's spread, and he's kicked, and he's pushed around, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, I have never in my life seen this. And he had his paperwork and stuff handy, and his name is Japanese, and they're like, where'd you get this? He's like, it's mine. And the police officer, another one comes onto my side. He leans into the window, and he goes, ma'am, are you okay? Is everything all right here? And I was like, this is my brother. And they're like, what? I said, he's my brother. Oh, I'm like, do you need like family photos, or do you need like, and so like when I proved that his last name was Japanese and the car is registered in the Japanese name, then it was all okay because he was Japanese. And I was just like, I felt like I was just in the Twilight Zone. And so when my brother gets in the car and everything goes forward and we make it to our appointment late, he just kind of laughs in this awkward way, and he goes, yeah, you just get used to it. And I was like, you shouldn't be getting used to this. This is not something you're supposed to get used to. And so that was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. And I was just, yeah. Anyway, I've told that story enough, and people are like, really? Let me see a picture of your brother. So that's my relationship, with the cops. Same thing with my niece. We were in a hurry to go somewhere, and I'm like, well, let's just go. And she's trying to braid her hair back, and it's all big. And I'm like, let's just go. And she's like, I need to put my hair down. She goes, if I go out like this, she goes, we're going to get pulled over. And I was like, what? Are you serious? And that's in Fargo. And she goes, Auntie, I gotta put my hair down. I gotta braid my hair back. And so I guess, sorry, I that's as close as I've come to it, and I'm sorry that other people come closer.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. All right, so we're going to take a commercial break, and then we're going to come back with a couple more questions for our panel, our guest panel.
Let's face it, shopping for insurance can be time-consuming. That's why when it comes to your auto, home, and life insurance needs, make things simple and trust the experts at Allstate. They will help you get the coverage that fits your needs while helping you bundle your life, home, and auto policies. Bundling saves you money, sure, but it also saves you time, so you can enjoy the things that matter most even more. Contact me, Tammy Haynes, your local agent, for a free personalized insurance quote. Allstate, are you in good hands?
Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character. Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music.
For my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people and this classic Bible teaching say, make this for my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people and this classic Bible teachings, hey, 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 motivation.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
It's like a loop machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KeversVoice.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Now, you can't live in Texas and not have a good red meat blend. Texas Cowboy Dust is designed for steak and other red meats. It's out to be my most popular spice blend, made with onions, peppers, ground mushrooms, pink salt, and other spices. Texas Cowboy Dust also goes great with chicken, pork, vegetables, and adds a restaurant-quality sheen to gravies and sauces.
Majesty is a premium health and wellness tea line focused on bringing delicious yet healthy tea blends to the community. Filled with an abundance of vitamins and antioxidants, we work to blend teas with exotic spices and fruits to produce scrumptious and wholesome beverages. So check us out at mymajesties.com. That's MyMajesTeas.com.
All right, you guys, welcome back. So I have another question. We have Malik Forbes who is joining us, and Malik happens to be my son. And so we're going to have a talk with him in a second. But there is a new term. You know, we've learned a lot of new terms in 2020, like social distancing and all of that. But there's a term that I didn't even know existed. And that term is white spaces. And so when we look at, I think, and I'm bringing this up because someone mentioned, you know, the social media, and this has come out of Black people just doing things that we think everyone should do, like bird watching, going to Starbucks, entering your own condo, and things of that nature. And so just reading about how the police is called on people of color, Black people, African American people, the term white spaces comes up. And it is said that, you know, when Blacks occupy white spaces, they may get in trouble. The police may be called on you. Segregation ended, I believe, in 1964, kind of, like laws were put in place. So please just give me more, just share with me more. Is that truly a thing? And again, just growing up in New York and South Florida, you know, the way I grew up was a little different. Yes, I do realize that there were times where me and my parents would be certain places and it's like, oh, what are you doing here? But it was often a look or being followed in a store. But to blatantly call the police when a man is telling you the right thing to do, like leash your dog while you are in this area of Central Park, ma'am. And to have the police called on you for something that simple. So please share just from your different perspectives. You're all from different places. You're of different age groups. Please let me understand this concept. And do you experience it, especially being someone who's a college student, and you also attend a PWI. So is that something that's talked about, is shared? Just share.
This topic, it's not funny by any means, but the amount of subtle experiences I've had is almost laughable at this point, that people don't believe this happens. And a few that come to my mind, my family was the first and the only Black family in my neighborhood in Parkland for, I'd say, until maybe 2014. And we lived there since 1999. I never experienced someone actually saying things to us because it's South Florida. Like, there is a possibility someone else could live here. But I've gotten plenty of looks sitting at the Parkland Library with my friends. What are you doing here? Type of looks. But I think the most outward experience that I've had was at my law school preview day at FSU. It was on top of Doak Stadium. Like, it was a whole nice event. Okay, we dressed up. And I walked in. You were allowed to bring a guest. So I brought my boyfriend, who is white. And we got there, and they thought he was the admitted student. And it was such a weird experience because I obviously know this stuff happens, but in the moment you get so shell shocked because how dare you? You don't know me. You don't know that I'm a 19-year-old law student, yet you look down on me. And it was the most subtle way. We just walked up to the table to sign in, and we saw people before us, and the person sitting down would say, okay, what is your section? What's your class? Whatever. And they were saying it to who they thought the person was. We walked up to the table, and the girl immediately turns to him. And I said, well, I'm the admitted student. And she's like, obviously, oh, sorry, whatever. But I just thought that was so telling. But yes, at a PWI, it happens all the time. If there's a Black student walking by themselves, they get looks. If there's a Black student walking around in the evening, they get looks. Like, it's just so common and people don't think it really happens. So that's why I think it's laughable at this point.
Wow. Nina?
I think that for me, the biggest thing is that almost every time I've experienced something of that nature, and remember again, I am from the city of Atlanta. I was born in the city of Atlanta. I grew up in the city of Atlanta. I lived in Fayetteville for about 1.5 years of my life and moved back to the city of Atlanta. And so most of the places where I've experienced something being considered a white space and being looked at differently because you were in the area, it was places that originally I remember as a young kid being predominantly Black areas that have now been gentrified. And so for me, the biggest thing is like, I remember being in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and these places were where my aunts, uncles, grandparents, siblings lived at. And now all of a sudden, a group of white people come and they decide they can make the neighborhood better and they can do this and they can do that. And there was so many of them in the area that once used to be ours. And now all of a sudden, it's a dog park, and now Black people can't walk their dogs there, or bird watching and Black people can't come and bird watch, or whatever you want to, whatever hobby you want to talk about it. It's just like, I mean, I really don't think that makes any sense to me at all, because it's like you came, you took, and you really honestly have no right to tell one who was here before you that this isn't their space or they aren't allowed here. And every time I have experienced, which I have experienced many of times, it has been that way, especially if any of you guys are familiar with downtown Atlanta. That's pretty much how it is all the time. Like, white people, they look, you walking around doing something that's of Black culture, and they look at you different. They definitely do. And to me, it's weird, because I remember going down to Centennial Park in downtown Atlanta before it was so gentrified, and it was so many Black people of the same culture that knows the same culture I did, grew up in the same culture I did. And it's just so weird now to walk down there and there's so many of another race, and it's just like, it doesn't, like, they treat me as if this isn't my home, or this isn't where I originated at. And so I don't really, and that goes to show the privilege. That goes to show the privilege, because we can't do that. I could never in a million years go to Fayetteville and call myself looking at some white folks different because they're in an area that I call my own. Like, it just would never work, and it didn't work. And that's one of the reasons why I moved back to where I originated from Fayetteville, because it didn't work. It won't work, but for some reason it's okay when they do it.
Thank you for your thoughts. Anessa, do you have any comments about the... Oh, you're on mute.
There you go. Yeah, I just have some examples, of course, from the other side. Working with the Alternative Learning Center, having kids come into my classroom who moved in from different parts of the United States, especially when we had the oil boom in North Dakota. We had people from all over the areas where the recession had hit you guys, but we were booming. So we had a lot of new people coming in, and the students weren't, they made it there before their paperwork came. So the office and the administrators had to make a knee-jerk reaction about who goes to which classes. And the minority students were definitely overrepresented in the alternative classes. And I remember when they came into my room, I gave them a little pre-test. Actually, it was like the test we'd given the class the week before. And they there was a couple of girls, they just aced it. Like, they just flew through it. And I was like, what are you doing in my room? And they're like, I know, they just told us we had to be in here. And so I actually had them helping tutor and go around and helping all the kids who are having trouble, which was a really good lesson for a lot of the kids in my classes, to have these new girls from the South explaining to them how to write 5-paragraph themes and things like that. So that was I thought that was a good experience for them. But it didn't take long for their parents to come to the school and go, why is my daughter in that classroom? Why is my daughter being used as a teacher for these kids? And they were right. And I had to go to the office and say, this is ridiculous. They shouldn't have been here all along. Things like that. And I did work at a Native American school for 5 years. And so my tiny little experiences of being the minority and what are you doing in here was just barely. I mean, I remember one year there was a big powwow, and they announced the winner of this final huge, amazing, beautiful star quilt and everything, and it was my name, my number, and I did not want to go down there to claim this because it wasn't the coveted prize. And everybody's clapping and looking for the number, and I walk down there, and it just goes quiet. And I get this beautiful star quilt, and I'm ashamed to win and take it to my seat. And I whisper to my boyfriend, why didn't you just go get this? And he goes, just a little taste. You just got a little taste. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. You're right. I needed to feel this. So I just got to do what I can. But anyway, there's just so many things I wish I could say to you guys, but by the time it's my turn, I've forgotten them. But anyway, I just wish I could help more, do more, or be more aware of how unaware I am. Can I be more aware of how unaware I am?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that is a great point. And to share that with people, because I think that's how we move forward. And instead of, being defensive, which I think sometimes people are, just saying, look, I need to understand this thing more and be more aware of what I don't know. because that is not my experience,
Right.
and so that is a amazing point. That's a great point. Do you guys think that this administration has unleashed hate? And when I say that, I don't mean that I don't think this stuff is not happening. It's just being recorded now. Now we have devices where it's being recorded now. But the how blatant people are with not just voicing their opinion, but the threat of hate that they spew out is unapologetic. And do you think that our current administration has assisted with the unleash of the hate? And that's so you can start.
Definitely has unleashed the hate. We had a struggle for 8 years of the bullying campaign, and so many people going, oh yeah, now that this anti-bullying campaign, the bullying's going rampant. And I look at them and go, no, it's because the bullying's being documented. I mean, that's what it was. It wasn't that it's rampant when under those situations. And now they're not keeping track so much anymore of the bullying, and we are seeing it more and more and more in the schools. And it's funny because sometimes administrators or whatever would say something like, well, the bullying's gone down. And I'm like, just because they're not reporting it doesn't mean it's not happening. And are you guys keeping track of the number of people who complain? Or are you keeping track of the number of people who are being complained about? Because you can just have one jerk who just ruins it, who just poisons the system, poisons, whether it be sexual harassment or racial harassment or, gay, lesbian, harassment. All you need is just 2 or 3 people who can ruin everything. So it's like, why are you counting the number of people who complained? Why aren't you keeping more track of the people being complained about and solve that problem? But yes, definitely under the Trump administration, whether it be at my job as a computer programmer or my job in the school system, it's been okay to say mean, horrible things, and the racist jokes are out there again. Whereas at least before they had to whisper them in their own little tiny group, and now it's at the table.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Definitely.
Wow. All right, Nina?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I do think that the hate is, I wouldn't say that there's more hate, but I think that the hate is magnified. As it was already said, it's just being documented more now, so we see it more in our faces. But yeah, there's hate, and I would go as far as to say the hate is really on both ends. And so we have hate coming from African Americans towards white people, because it's like, you know what I'm saying, even if it's not you that's doing it, it's like you see it and you don't do anything. And then you have hate coming from the other end. But it's all, to me, it really is just all ignorance, because from me being black and seeing a lot of black people that I know retaliate, not even retaliating, but responding to like the Black Lives Matter movement, it's more of a thing of like all white people. And so the hate just grows stronger and stronger for all white people every time something happens. But then it's like on the other end, it's like with nothing being done, again, it's made okay. So it's just a lie. It's just a lie. And again, it all comes from ignorance, I feel. So that's where informing ourselves and informing everyone else comes into play. If you're not informed, you don't know what's going on. And then it's okay for you to say, well, I hate all white people, or I hate all black people, because you don't know. You don't know. So, yeah.
Destiny?
I think this administration has allowed people to come out of the woodworks more confidently. It hasn't changed anybody's minds about the way they felt before. They felt that way before this president. But when people don't realize the amount of power, the amount of power that's in his words, because he is the most powerful person on the planet, his words alone can incite people's physical actions. And we've seen that happen. We've seen that happen in Texas, I think it was. And they don't realize that using one word, I can't tell you the amount of times I've seen the word thug this past week. Thug is a word that has like phased out. No one says that anymore, okay? Donald Trump says that word one time. The amount of times I've seen it circulate this week and used negatively is disgusting. People don't realize how powerful his words are and that they're causing other people to be confident about their hatred now.
Yeah, like Donald Trump. Hey, she's also my god sister too, by the way. And Stephanie. But also, like Donald Trump, he's not sugarcoating nothing. He's saying how he feels all the time. He don't care. He doesn't care. So, but he's also a businessman. So yeah, but he's just showing people that speak on how you feel, and then people are speaking on how they feel. So yeah, the racism or the hatred for one another never died down. People were just more quiet about it. But now that they have a president that's he's showing that he's speaking on anything, and he's speaking on like how he feels about pretty much anything. Other people feel like it's okay to talk now, and voice their opinions on how they truly feel, which is good because it's not like they're not talking about it secretly no more. They're being real, so we can get to the bottom of a situation when people are being honest about how they feel about it. Instead of being all secretive, like, "Oh, I'm not racist." No, you are. Whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at the Anti-Defamation League, basically shares the escalation of hate and how it starts, and it starts with words. Starts with words, ends with genocide, and so we have to take these things very seriously. So I want to end with, I don't know where he went, but I want to end with Malik just honestly sharing his thoughts, and this goes back to All Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, but basically when he does just simple things. And I just want you to share a little bit about how you feel. Just think about from your job to home, which is maybe 4 miles possibly. Just some of the things, some of the anxiety you may feel, or just how you feel in general. In addition to that, what kinds of things that I have to share with you when I was preparing you to drive for the first time. When you got those set of keys when you turned 16, what kinds of things do you remember me sharing with you? And what is your experience living in the skin that you have to live in?
All right. Well, okay. Also, my father is a police officer. Well, he just retired, but he was a police officer in Florida. And so growing up with him, I had a father that was also the police, so he taught me a lot also. But my mentality was, and is, first of all, be respectful to the cop, because I already know he can view me as someone that might endanger him, you know what I'm saying? So he might be scared. And he's a regular person too. So cops do get scared and they fear for their lives also. So I have to make sure I'm just really cautious and just letting the cop know what I'm doing, because I don't know what he might do, because he's scared. People do crazy things when they're scared. So, yeah, that's that. But growing up, it just became more normal. It just became normal. Just the way people may look at me or anything like that. Because I went to school in Henry County, I went to school in Fayette County, I went to school in DeKalb County. So I went, very diverse, but I was able to adapt to my environment because I understood how people could view me just by media, I might be the first black person someone met, but they've seen black people throughout the media 100 times, but they only saw the negative points of view, of a black person. So, yeah, I always just try to put my best foot forward when I'm around someone that's not my skin color per se, because they already have views on me, that I already have to clean up, and they don't even know me, So, yeah, it's just more normal now. Even though segregation and all that, yeah, they said that it ended 20, 30 years ago, 50 years ago, whenever, but it's still going on today.
All right. Yeah. So thank you, Malik, for that. And I'm going to go around and let everyone share their final thoughts. I'm going to start with Anessa because I know her phone, her technology may end, but I would like some final thoughts And you can talk about the rioting, the murder, just your thoughts in general at where we are as a country. But you have to unmute first.
Well, I was going to say, I know that somebody in the last set had said that things didn't change and things had been the same. It was just hidden, and I have to say that I disagreed. I'm going to disagree with that, because when it's hidden, the kids aren't being taught to hate. They aren't taught to be mean. We had 6 solid years of a good anti-bullying campaign, and when the group around you is like sneering at the person who made racial comments, that shuts it down, and it doesn't happen anymore. And so no new people are being spread the poison. So like if you have, really racist families in the community, they aren't able to pull people into their ideas. So I'm definitely thinking that our president has opened that box again, so it's okay to say these horrible things. And so the people who have these dark hearts they're spreading their racism, and that didn't happen for a few years. So I'm really looking forward to a new administration and maybe some new ideas. But the idea too is that everybody needs to vote, because it's our local elections that help us help our judges, and it's our judges who determine who gets incarcerated. It's our sheriff and our police who just determine who gets booked and who gets taken home with a slap on the wrist, and we're not going to tell your mom because we know you'll get in trouble. So it has to start at the local level, and people need to make sure that they're getting their voices heard, so that the right voices get heard.
Thank you. So I just wanted her to be able to chime in if something happened to her technology. But I agree with you 100%. And someone sent this to me this morning. He sent me some videos of the organized rioting. And one of the things we said was keep that same energy when it's time to vote. That same energy you're taking to destroy our cities, the same energy you're taking this man's death to take an opportunity to steal from in Louis Vuitton, the Louis Vuitton store in Atlanta. Keep that same energy when it comes time to vote and get the right people in office. Okay? And so I totally 100% agree with you. Nina?
So, firstly, I would like to say that I read something on Twitter. Basically, it was the dream, and he was saying, if you're not from the city of Atlanta, like if you were not from Atlanta, and same for all other cities that are going through right now with protesting or whatever's going on, if you aren't from the city of Atlanta, he was saying don't come and, destroy our stuff. But then on the other hand, I feel as though if you aren't from the city of Atlanta, or you didn't grow up here, or you didn't spend much time here, you can't really tell the people that are here and how to retaliate to injustices. Though I may not agree with a lot of the things going on, I cannot tell anyone else how to retaliate to injustices, because everybody feels differently about the situation. With that being said, again, I'm maybe 20 minutes away, if that, from everything that is going on downtown. I'm maybe less than that from everything that's going on. And it didn't kind of hurt my heart to see the city being destroyed, because of the simple fact that this is where I grew up at. Like I said, I went to Centennial Park every year faithfully. I went for holidays, 4th of July, just on regular days, hanging out down there, going to the underground, all those things. And to see it just all be destroyed, it really hurt my heart. But I have to try to see where this anger is coming from. With that being said, on the other hand, again, I feel as though this looting, as you said, like destroying the Louis Vuitton store, is all unnecessary. And a lot of people I feel like no one else can look at our race differently until we look at our race differently. And half of the people, some of these people are my down, stealing from the liquor store, doors and windows, and they have no reason for it. They have no reason. They don't know much about the George Floyd situation. They know a black man was killed, but they haven't read their facts, anything like that. And so they're just going down to steal. And it's just like, those are the type of things that make another culture or another race look at us in the way that they do. And so I feel like if we decide, oh, we're going to riot, there needs to be a reason behind everything that we're doing, and there needs to be consistency. So if we say we're going to go and we're going to riot and we're going to fight the injustice, there needs to be a reason behind every single thing. If y'all decide the way that you want to fight it is by blowing up stores, at least have a reason and a plan behind what you are doing. Instead, people are going down and just destroying stuff for no apparent reason, and it's just like it's causing us to take 10 steps back versus 10 steps forward. And so I just feel like there needs to be something, a plan, and you know what I'm saying, everybody's having dialogue, but what's next after the dialogue? Because ultimately, if we have dialogue and there's no plan of action, that's when people decide to just go do random stuff because we don't have a plan. And so yeah, we got to do better. We got to.
Yes, and I agree. And I want to touch on 2 points. One, your point about people basically you're saying people telling you how to feel your pain and how to show your pain. And that's something that Chris Cuomo also shared in his final thoughts. He had a segment called America, the Tale of Two Cities. And what he said is there are two sides. And one side that you see that's rioting, that's rebellion. That's the rebellion of people who are unheard. He also said to stop not seeing the pain. Don't allow yourself to not see the pain in others. And you may not agree with how it's being demonstrated, but don't allow yourself to not see the pain. Said that this is a never-ending pattern of dead, young, Black men. And we have to see the pain behind that, and we can't make judgment on that. Another point you made was the reason. I 100% agree with that. Me and my children marched on, was that Friday in the hot sun, with our safety at risk. We have the COVID-19 out here. Also, just anytime you do a protest, you never know what's going to happen. And we walked from the Centennial Park to the Capitol and back. And I felt like there were people talking and there were people sharing with us, this is our city, we love it, and we're not going to harm it and this and that. But when it came to that voice, and we are missing a voice. And when you think about the March on Washington and that iconic speech that came out of that, the organized boycotts that came out of the pain, everyone was on one accord. And I feel like my generation has missed it. I feel like my generation, because y'all are younger, our generation, me and Nessa and our producer, we are reaping the benefits of people who sacrificed for us. And when you think about the Children's March, where Martin Luther King couldn't go because his safety was at risk and they advised him not to, and only the children were there, and they got bitten by dogs and sprayed with water hoses and arrested. I am literally reaping every benefit of their pain. And with that benefit, I packed my stuff as soon as I could afford to, and I moved to a community where I could feel safe. I moved to a community with good schools. I moved to a community with a Starbucks. I'm reaping the benefits, but what am I doing about it? Yeah, I may organize stuff here and there, but really, am I doing what I need to do to give back? So that's why I invited younger people on here, because I feel like you all are going to have to figure it out for us. And I feel like we missed the mark on that as a society and as a group of people. And so I really, really hope, and I'm charging you guys with being a change that you all want to see. And the number of people that were actually out there, if we had someone that could have effectively led us, we could have done so many positive things. And when I looked at the crowd and I saw it was a lot of white people there, Asian people, Muslim people. There were old women walking with walkers down the street with signs saying Black Lives Matter. And I just feel like we have to keep that collective energy and really have a reason behind it, as Nina's saying, and be organized and just really be consistent, that this doesn't stop here. And the biggest part for me is look at what they lost. Martin Luther King made the ultimate sacrifice. He lost his life. But how many people lost their jobs? How many people lost their kids? How many people lost their freedom to fight? And I don't think we have that same spirit because we're not willing to lose everything for this. And that's something that I wish people would be more honest and really say how they feel about it. Because are you willing to sacrifice everything for our future generations so that they're able to truly have a future where they can live freely? All right, so Destiny.
Wait, real quick. Like you said something about Martin Luther King. It's a big difference. Like he was fueled by love, and we're fueled by hate right now, you know. And so yeah, that's the main thing I just wanted to throw in there real quick. And also, Martin Luther King said, a riot is the voice of the unheard, you know. And so I mean that says it all right there. So yeah, we do need to get more organized. And so yeah, go ahead, Destiny. I think he was next.
Destiny.
I just have a couple final takes. So first with the riots, I want to make it very clear and I've done this on my social media. If you have not addressed the murder, you cannot address the riots. Just start there. If the first thing you've said about this entire situation is, wow, these riots, if the riots compelled you enough to post on social media, but the murder did not, that is where you lose me. And I understand, just like Nina, you said, there's obviously two sides to this. Productivity has never come from violence and has not always come from violence.
Okay.
And I lean on the side to say, number one, you don't feel my pain, so you can't tell me how to exert it. Number two, we also have to preface it with there are outside people that we have seen reports of starting the violence. Mm-hmm. And if you come at me with that, how do you expect people to react? So that is something that needs to be prefaced before anything else, because there's a lot of fake news, people believing that I'm leaving my house, going out there looking to burn down my city, which isn't true. No one leaves their house with that agenda. That's what it turns into. And so that needs to be prefaced before anything else, that there's outsiders looking to make this worse. On the other hand, like we have said so many times, the violence takes away from... This is what people want. They want people to be able to post on their Facebook, look at these rioting thugs, and taking away from what we are trying to accomplish. This is what people want. But when you're hurting, it is impossible. It's very hard to control the way that you are grieving it. And what we have to recognize is that Black people are grieving over and over and over, and we don't have time to get over one death before another happens. And grief comes out in multiple forms.
First.
So we have to recognize that. So I understand people who are going to post riots, Jesus was peaceful. I've been seeing that so much, but Jesus also condemned murder. So if you're not going to address that, you don't have a place to talk about the riots. And I believe that comes into the same thing with talking about police. There's so many police that I know are going to be affected now because of what happened, but that's not where you should preface this with. Again, if you have not said anything about the murder, if you have not said anything about how horrific that was, if the first thing that comes out of your mouth after seeing a Black man killed is, but there's going to be so many police who are retaliated against, if that's the first thing that comes out of your mouth, then I don't think you're in a position of understanding and empathy. Empathy first, and then we can talk about how people who are grouped with the perpetrator will be affected. But let's talk about the victims first. And I think that two-step process, if we go through that every time, I'd be more willing to hear what somebody else has to say about not supporting the riots and cops aren't bad. because obviously I believe both of those things. So,
Wi-Fi.
the last thing I have to say is if we go out and we protest because we love Black people and not because we hate cops, I think our hearts would also be a little bit different.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right, so I want to end by just sharing some bullet points with you. Check in. No hoodie, no do-rag. Always get a bag, always get a receipt. Don't run. Don't touch these people's stuff in the store. Don't have your loud music playing. Always keep your hands visible. Keep your ID on you. Did you leave that Legal Shield number at home? Make sure you have the Legal Shield card in your car. Memorize the number. These are all things that I have to say to my son when he's just trying to go to school, when he's just trying to go to work, when he's just trying to be him. I'm tired of having to say that. I'm tired of us having to live by a different set of rules in our country that we helped to build. Please, please keep that same energy. Keep that same energy for the polls. Keep that same energy in speaking up. When you're the only one in the room and you hear people making comments or making jokes, saying stuff that makes you uncomfortable, speak up and say something. We are the change. We are the change. And just like you said, I think Vanessa said it best when she said, when you're saying your prayers, that's your checklist. That's your to-do list for the day. So if you're posting and you really stand for this, continue it. Continue to speak up against it. Continue to feel, as Destiny said, that empathy involved, and just walk in our shoes and just understand. We want to see our kids come home. That's all. We want to live. We want to breathe. We want to, enjoy Starbucks. We want to watch birds. We want to swim. We want to do the same things that you do. So let us. And we don't want to die for just trying to do those things. Even a simple arrest should not result in death. Making a mistake in a store should not result in my death. So I just thank you so much for joining us today. As always, you can email us if you have questions for any of our guests at wearethebrunchbunch@gmail.com. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much.